Hello strategy gamers, and I wanted to do a really quick video here to make some correction as well as maybe some addition to what I spoke about in my How Trade Works Stellaris 2.2 guide. Before I begin, I'd just like to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I have plans to release a video this week, but I might not be able to make it because I am taking the week off. But when I have time, perhaps end of this week, if it's possible, I will release a video, not on a guide. I have plans of releasing a video on a certain game by a certain company called Valve. Yeah, you probably can guess what game that is, but yeah, there are no basically there's no guarantees that I'll release the video this week, but I'll try my best to release it this week. If not, I will release it next year. So onwards with this video. Before that, hold on, let me just reduce the sound of the music here. I think the music is nice, but it's a bit loud. Okay, so in my How Trade Works guide, I mentioned that the trade routes basically take the shortest route to your empire capital within your territory. Now that isn't true, and I've read this up on the Paradox forums as well. As you can see here, I've built a trade hub in a starport at Alpha Centauri, and if I show you guys the trade route it's taking, it's actually going out of my territory into a neutral space here and going to my solar system sun here. So it's not actually taking 1, 2 and 3. Hold on, sorry, 1, 2 and 3 versus 1 and 2. Yeah, so this is the shortest route, and this is 1, 2 and 3. It's not taking this route though. Now there are problems with this though, because I think Paradox has to relook into this, because for instance, my space in the neutral part of basically this planet Diam or whatever is they're actually hostile forces, asset protection unit with a strength of 961, and because of that, if you can see in my menu for the trade routes, incoming trade routes here, Alpha Centauri is not generating any, it's not sending any trade value up to my empire capital at Sun here. And that's a problem because I can't control the trade route to go within my territory or to avoid certain dangerous space. And that actually, if you think about it, does not make much sense, because if you think about traders, right, and if one particular region becomes hostile or whatever, and they're like, hey, let's send trade back to the empire capital, but let's continue sending to this hostile section and basically lose our trade and lose our lives, like, no way, that simply does not make sense. And I think Paradox, who are continuing to work on 2.2, which is a massive update, I must mention, they will have to tweak a couple of things, especially with trade regarding the details. So basically my explanation of the basics are still valid, but when it comes to tiny details like this, I think some of it don't make much sense, and they've really got to relook into this. So my point of contention really is trade should be smart enough to avoid hostile territories like this, which you don't have control. So it's not just neutral zones, right? From what I've heard is that trade routes can also enter into other empires' territories. So if you're not at war with that other empire, then it's not much of an issue. But if you are at war, I believe that if you have close borders, then the trade would not pass that region, the other empire's territory. But in this case, if it's neutral space, you're pretty much screwed. I'm pretty much screwed. So I'm losing a potential of like 22 plus 4 here trade value. So the thing about trade routes, right, it basically takes the shortest route to your empire capital, and really it's as simple as that. It's a very simplistic way of calculating what the new trade route should be. Now if trade routes are to be smarter than this, there's another design problem, which is you have to sort of reward the players with the shortest trade route versus the trade route that's taking for an extra 1 or 2 hyperlanes. You could just redirect trade routes to very well protected routes, right, into these massive mega hyperlane trade routes, right, if you had direct manual control over trade routes. But even if you don't, right, then there has to be an advantage to having the shortest route to your empire capital. Right now, basically, if you're getting 22 trade route, regardless if there's 10 hyperlanes or 2 hyperlanes, you'll be getting that 22 trade value. You'll be getting that 22 trade value as long as piracy is 0, there's no piracy, everything is equal, you'll be getting all 22 of it. So there's really no incentive to having a shorter route. The trade value is basically not propagated over time. So there really is no mechanic that sort of incentivizes shorter trade routes right now. So trade routes are really quite a dumb thing, actually. I'm not saying that in a pejorative way or anything like that. It's just, it's not a smart trade route thing, right? So if Paradox were thinking about fixing this issue of trade route going to neutral hostile territory, then they probably will have to adjust some of these mechanics, or maybe add a bit more depth to trade routes. Okay, so having said that about trade routes, the other thing I want to talk about is I think some people unsure about trade value from planetary bodies like asteroids. So I have, for instance, in Alpha Centauri here, if I check Alpha Centauri trade hub station, I have built a trade hub here, so it's collecting trade value from systems 1 hyperlane away. So you can see here Procyon versus Cursor and Cursor. I'm collecting the 4, and here's the thing, you don't need a mining station. That seems a little odd, right? I don't deny that. So Cursor here, these 2 asteroids here don't have mining stations, but I'm already collecting these 2 trade values. I guess it makes, from a resource perspective, it makes sense, because it's only 1 asteroid is giving me 2 trade value, and having forced players to build a mining station might be a bit too costly. Then really the opportunity cost of actually getting that trade value just doesn't add up, right? So right now it's as simple as, it's a bit weird, because all other resources you need to build a mining station of sorts, but when it comes to these trade values from planetary bodies like gas giants and asteroids, you just need to have a trade hub within, within the range of the trade collection range of that space pod or whatever you want to call it. And that's kind of weird, but I'm not so bummed about this. This is all right. It doesn't make much logical sense, because hey, traders aren't going to go to a asteroid and pick it up like manually, right? There has to be some sort of mining operation. Anyway, that's just a really minor nitpick. The other thing that I want to talk about is really, okay, going back to what I said about 2.2 being a really massive update to the game, completely reshaping and reworking the game in major ways, that also means that the game right now is a little buggy. Some things are not working as intended, and trade is one of the things that I've seen on the forum that a lot of people are pointing out things that don't make much sense. So if you have any issue with the game, like, you can ask me, I can try to find out for you what exactly is going on. But even my knowledge is quite, I'm not a developer, so I really don't know what the design intention was for some of the things, actually. So it requires a lot of experimentation and observation and checking out the Paradox forums, essentially. But if you do have any problems, you can always visit the Paradox forums and put out a ticket for some bug or something. So speaking about bugs, one of the things that has been bugging me, no pun intended, is these things. If you look in the trade routes map mode here, and if you look at Sun, my empire capital here, there are symbols for trade protection and trade collection here, and you can see that it's a light bluish color here. But there's also stuff that's There's also stuff like, for instance, Alpha Centauri here that's grayed out. And I also have a trade route coming from Nizatorum, right? Yeah, this is also grayed out. I don't really know why it's grayed out. I mean, the logical thought here is that if it's grayed out means you're not actually collecting trade value from that station, from that area. But that doesn't make sense because the values that are showed in incoming trade routes here. Okay, for Alpha Centauri, for instance, right? It shows that I'm getting 0% here. If I click through here, you can see that I'm getting 29.8. So Alpha Centauri, I'm getting 22 from the Alpha Centauri system itself, plus 4, which is 26, plus another 3, which is about 29. Okay, that's correct. So 29 of trade value is being sent to Diem here, but because this is a hostile territory, there are hostiles here, I'm losing all of it. Right, it says because of system piracy, but it's not because of piracy, it's because of some hostile units here, and nothing is reaching the sun. So in that case, yeah, you could say that, yeah, that's why it's grayed out. But the problem is, if I look at Wokon here, now this really does not make sense because it shows that I'm collecting. I have a trade hub on Wokon here, and it's collecting trade from Nolion here, which has 6 trade value, right? And also it shows here Wokon here is sending 100. There's no loss of any trade value anywhere because I've put my fleet out here to protect from pirates, basically. So it is sending all 100% to my Empire capital, but it's still showing grayed out. Now this is something that is really odd, and I don't quite understand what's going on here. Actually, showing it like not grayed out basically should communicate to people that yes, the trade value is being transferred to here, and the trade value from here is being transferred to there, unless there is a major problem that's blocking it. Like, it shouldn't be grayed out. So that's my point, 2.2 really is a massive update, and there are things that we are still unsure about whether it's working as intended or whether this is a bug, by the way, which I've already posted this on the Paradox forum, but I don't expect to get a reply for this anytime soon, at least this month, or rather, yeah, this month and next week as well, because most people are on leave, on holiday. So yeah, it's still a work in progress, and I think 2.2 will get major updates next month and going into February. It's still playable, but I think some of the information and UI, if you watched, or rather if you read the previous change log for the last update, which came up like 4 days ago or something, there are stuff about the UI which basically they say it's not showing the true value and stuff. So yeah, it's still a work in progress, sort of, and there are bugs, and the UI isn't exactly showing things correctly. So if you do have an issue with your game, you can always ask me. I can find out whether other people are having the same issue, or you can always go to the Paradox forums and put your report out there. So I think trade routes really need to be given a second look, and maybe even a rework a little bit on how it calculates distance and stuff. So yeah, that's about it. I don't want to ramble on way too long in this video. I just want to tell you guys I'm really grateful for all of you guys subscribing to this channel, and if you have any suggestion or strategy games you want me to cover, do a what is videos, you can always suggest in the comments. And yeah, thanks for subscribing, thanks for liking and watching my videos. Have an amazing Christmas and happy holidays, guys. Bye bye. I'll see you guys in the next video.